Good day, everyone. For our lesson today, we are starting with another component in MAPEH, which is health. Under the second quarter lesson of health is the topic Prevention of Substance Use and Abuse. Specifically, we will be discussing the 6 classifications of drugs of abuse. Before we proceed to the main lesson, I want to introduce you to these words. These words are the common concepts or the usual words that you will encounter in studying substance use and abuse. First term is drugs. These are any substances or chemicals which, when taken into the body, either through nasal, oral, transdermal, or intravenous way, have psychological, emotional, and behavioral effects on a person. Second term is drugs of abuse. These are drugs commonly abused by users. In the Philippines, the 3 drugs of abuse are shabu, marijuana, and inhalants. Next is drug dependence, which is a cluster of physiological, behavioral, and cognitive phenomena of which variable intensity in which the use of a drug takes on a high priority, thereby creating a strong desire to take the substance. Then we have drug abuse, which is the use of a substance for non-medicinal purposes. Abuse leads to organ damage like brain damage and liver damage, addiction, and troubled behavioral patterns. And lastly, we have drug tolerance, which is the condition of the body to adapt to the effects of substances to the body, thus requiring an even larger amount of the substance to experience the same physiological and mental effect experienced when taking the smaller dosage. Now, let's proceed to the first classification of drugs of abuse. The first one is what we call gateway drugs. But why is it called gateway? Gateway going to where? Let's discover why they are called gateway drugs. So basically, they are called gateway drugs because these are drugs that a non-drug user might try, which can lead him or her to more dangerous drugs. The most common gateway drugs are cigarettes and alcohols, which are readily available in stores but are not allowed to be sold to minors. Second classification is what we call depressants. It is also known as downers because it slows down a person's central nervous system. It relaxes muscles and nerves. Doctors prescribe depressant drugs to help persons to be less angry, less stressed, or less tensed. It also makes patients feel sleepy and lightheaded. Depressants include alcohol, barbiturates, and tranquilizers. Third type is stimulants. If depressants are known as downers, stimulants are known as uppers or speeders. It has the opposite effect of depressants because these drugs speed up a person's central nervous system. A person can stay awake for longer periods under its influence. The most common example is caffeine, which is found in soft drinks, energy drinks, coffee, tea, and chocolate. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you drink coffee, soft drinks, or eat chocolate, you will be addicted. That's why you should drink and eat these foods in moderation. Some illegal stimulants are cocaine, nicotine, and methamphetamine or shabu, and ecstasy. Moving on, the fourth kind is called narcotics. Narcotic drugs are known as painkillers because it relieves pain and induces sleepiness. They are given to patients with mental disorders and those in severe pain, but only in moderation and if necessary, because too much and wrong use of these drugs may cause body organ failures. Some illegal narcotic drugs are heroin and marijuana, which if taken wrong may cause overdose, leading to coma and death. Next, the fifth classification is what we call hallucinogens. The name hallucinogens came from the word hallucination, which means to see illusions or things that are not real. These are drugs which distorts reality and facts. It affects all senses and makes a user see, hear, and feel things that don't exist and are not real. Long-term use may cause psychosis, which is a mental disorder in which reality is twisted. Some examples are lysergic acid diethylamide or LSD, psilocybin, mescaline, and what we call magic mushroom. And the last classification is called inhalants. From the word inhale, which means to breathe in, these drugs are taken in a nasal way. These are found in ordinary household chemical products such as acetone, rugby, spray paints, cleaning fluids, and air conditioner fluid or freon. Continuous use and abuse leads to delusion, brain damage, liver damage, coma, and death. So those are the 6 classifications of drugs of abuse. So just to summarize our topic, here are the things that you should remember. Drugs of abuse are classified according to their effect on the body. Gateway drugs, depressants, stimulants, hallucinogens, narcotics, and inhalants. Here are some facts about drug scenario in our country. Commonly abused drugs in the Philippines are shabu, marijuana, and inhalants. Filipino males are most vulnerable in experimenting and abusing drugs. Prescribed medicine to treat a medical condition can lead to substance abuse or addiction if not taken in the right way. Most people who are treated for substance use disorder need to stay in treatment for at least 3 months. Let's now go to the risk and protective factors about drug use and abuse. Risk factors are those influences which increase the chances of using, misusing, and abusing drugs. While protective factors, on the other hand, are those influences which decrease the chances of using and abusing drugs. Here are some risk and protective factors for the personal aspect of the individual. The risk and protective factors for the part of the person's family. The risk and protective factors when it comes to the person's choice of friends and peers. The risk and protective factors in school if the person is still studying. The risk and protective factors from the community where the person lives. Now, here are some signs when we can say that someone is using drugs. The following are common signs of drug revealed by individuals who are using drugs. While not all of these signs mean that one person is involved in drugs and there could be some other physical or emotional problem that is causing these behaviors, there is a high chance that drug use may be a possibility. First, declining interest in school or work, suddenly changes friends, or hangouts with individuals known for their drug use. becomes pessimistic, irritable, and anxious all the time, asks to be left alone a lot, is always tired or makes it as an excuse to be left alone, becomes careless and often becomes involved in accidents, becomes implicated in a lot of fights, frequent mood swings, sudden change in appearance and conduct, red or puffy eyes, weight changes, constant complaints of headaches or stomach aches, shaking, incessant cough, brown stains on fingertips, stumbling, or a constant runny nose. Loss of interest in hobbies or sports, exhibits poor judgment, and finds it difficult to concentrate. What are the harmful effects of these drugs in a person's body? Let's now discover the different short-term and long-term effects of these drugs of abuse. Here are the short-term and long-term effects of using gateway drugs like alcohol and cigarettes. Here are the short-term and long-term effects of using depressants, or what we call downers, which slows down a person's central nervous system. Here are the short-term and long-term effects of using stimulants, or the so-called uppers, which speeds up a person's central nervous system, making one feel high. Here are the short-term and long-term effects of using narcotics, also known as painkillers, which are given to persons who feel severe pain to lessen it. Here are the short-term and long-term effects of using hallucinogens, which are drugs that make a person hallucinate. And the last one, here are the short-term and long-term effects of using inhalant drugs. Aside from oneself, drug use and abuse also affects the immediate family, school, and community where the drug user lives. Below are some of the effects of drug use and abuse on the family, school, and community. First one, we have the effects of drug use and abuse on the family. Next one, here are the effects of drug use and abuse on the school, and the effects of drug use and abuse on the community. I will now introduce you to the different ways on how you can say no to an invitation of using drugs, and how to improve your decision-making skills about this matter. This is what we call resistance skills. The first step is thinking, what is the problem? Then proceed to step 2, which is thinking, what could happen if you try drugs? Lastly, the different ways of how you can say no. Another thing is the steps on how you can make a good decision for you to be able to avoid use of drugs. Step 1, describe the situation you are in. Step 2, list possible actions for the situation. Step 3, share your list with responsible adults. Step 4, carefully evaluate all possible actions. Step 5, choose which action is most responsible and suitable. Last step, act responsibly and intelligently. The following are protective factors you need to fight drug use and abuse. First, having a loving and caring family, involvement in sports, having a positive outlook in life, and positive self-image, caring and supportive friends, a sense of worthiness and achievement, always having the right attitude, ability to cope with stress and depression, having responsible adult role models, active participation in sports or recreation, participation in school clubs and activities, consultation with responsible adults like parents, teachers, counselors regarding problems, concerns, and queries in life. And lastly, development of your talents and your skills. Now remember, use and abuse of drugs nowadays can be everywhere. Yet, as a student, there might be some influences which you cannot really anticipate and so might affect you to try using these drugs. For you to prevent this from happening, you should have already learned the decision-making skills and resistance skills. There are also ways on how you can divert your attention to not taking and trying to use illegal drugs. There are various and healthy ways to get rid of drugs. People should understand the different protective factors and risk factors. Protective factors should be enhanced, while risk factors should be avoided and dropped for good. And that would be all for the health lesson this second quarter about prevention of substance use and abuse. Now I will show you the activities that you need to answer in your health modules. Take note, these are all the activities for Module 1 to 5 of Health this second quarter. For Module 1, answer the Let's Try and the Let's Evaluate part. For Module 2, answer Let's Try, Let's Recall, Let's Elaborate, and Let's Evaluate part. For Module 3, answer Let's Recall, Let's Elaborate, and Let's Apply, and the Let's Evaluate part. For Module 4, answer the Let's Try and Let's Evaluate part. And lastly, for Module 5, answer the Let's Try and the Let's Elaborate part. You can answer these activities online in the given links, or you can write an answer sheet. If you choose to answer online, no need to do an answer sheet. If you cannot answer online, you just need to write your answers in a paper, then take a picture of it and send it to me through chat. That's all for today. Thank you for listening and see you next week.